Your Excellencies, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, please allow me to express my thanks to the organizing committee for the opportunity to send this video message to you. Urgent health issue hasn't allowed me to participate in person. It is a pleasure to address the Eurasian Women's Forum. I thank the President of the Forum and the Minister of Health for extending the original invitation to me to be part of this important event. I am quite pleased that the Eurasian Women's Forum is held in the Russian Federation. My long-held respect for Russia, a country fosters its legacy through innovations and development in science, education, health and the arts, gives me hope that participants of the Eurasian Women's Forum will be able to bridge the world through collaboration and partnership from which Eurasian women and all humanity will benefit. The Eurasian Women's Forum is taking place in a time the world leaders are meeting during the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly to adopt a new Sustainable Development Agenda, replacing the Millennium Development Goals, which run their course at the end of this year. Gender equality and women's empowerment will be crucial to achieving this new agenda, as they were for making progress on the Millennium Development Goals. As well, this year marks important milestones on three landmark global agendas on gender equality and women's health: the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and the 15th anniversary of the Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. Allow me to say the third landmark was the inaugural World Women's Health and Development Forum held this last February at the United Nations headquarters. As Dr. Amir Dosal, the founder-chairman of the Global Partnerships Forum, said, the World Women's Health and Development Forum brought together an amazing group of global policymakers and practitioners and inspired the international community to make a difference for humanity. I am quite pleased that most of the distinguished guests and speakers at the inaugural forum whether at ministerial, intergovernmental organizations, diplomatic, academic or professional levels, were women in science. The outcome declaration of the inaugural Women's Health and Development Forum, which the participants contributed to and approved by acclamation, reflects an ambitious global action agenda and as a roadmap for women's health and development. However, there are key issues outlined in the declaration that are missing in the agreed text on the Sustainable Development Goals, also known as Agenda 2030. As the world and its economies become increasingly globalized, it is necessary to think about health in a global context. While there are talks about sustainable development for women's health, little is mentioned about women's health and development for sustainable development. In women's health, other than reproductive medicine, the subject of women's health hasn't been presented or discussed as fully as possible around the world. As a result, there is insufficient knowledge within academia as well as healthcare, public and policymakers levels on sex, that is biological, and gender, that is socio-economic based disparities, climate change and changing patterns of diseases, and increased conflicts and migration in the prevalence, progression and outcome of numerous diseases and conditions, including non-communicable diseases and mental illnesses. This insufficient knowledge not only affects women but also men and the whole of society. Despite the progress made in women's health in the last decade for millions of women and girls throughout the world, the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, including access to medicines, vaccines, commodities, equipment, other supplies, comprehensive primary health care services, health promotion and disease prevention, still remain a distant goal. In many instances, especially for those living in poverty and population in vulnerable or marginalized situations, this goal is becoming increasingly remote. There is an urgent need to promote new thinking on the mechanisms that support innovation in women's health programs. Further, it is essential to recognize the importance and need of science and technology for development and the critical role of science, technology, and innovation in addressing global challenges and in realizing sustainable development to enhance health and reduce the burdens of illness and disability. Agenda 2030 will be marked by true partnership that will bloom in abundance. The difference between partnership initiates out of Rio 1992, Johannesburg 2002, and a variety of other significant summits and international meetings is that the international community said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom." But these partnerships from all sides were based on individual entities, the I mentality rather than the we mentality. On the eve of the summit to approve this new development agenda, there is a genuine spirit of working together through obstacles to produce success rooted in the fertile earth of multilateralism. The Eurasian Women's Forum main focus is on the role of women in economy, humanitarian outreach, health, and global strategies, enabling us to discuss the many existing problems, issues facing women and societies today, and then to determine the indispensable solutions, actions, policies, and the programs to overcome these problems and issues. We need to recognize the role of women in science in sustainable development process. Such recognition should be through acknowledging the accomplishments and achievements of women in science. This year, we at the Royal Academy of Science International Trust celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Women in Science International Award, the first international award to acknowledge and recognize women innovation, excellence, intelligence, and success, and to honor women as leaders. The participants clearly indicated in the inaugural World Women's Health and Development Forum Declaration the need to ensure sustainability of development for women and all humankind, to achieve equality and full participation for women in science in decision-making and sustainable development programs, and to build political, international, and scientific support for the improvement of women in science, education, employment, and situation. It is not acceptable that in many countries, including United States of America and United Kingdom, women in science are paid less than their male colleagues. It is not acceptable that girls do not have the equal quality of science education in many regions around the world. It is not acceptable that women in science are not well represented in policy-making process. This is not the future we want. In terms of women and girls in science, it is valuable to note that a thorough search through Google reveals that women have literally played a role with men through 4,000 years of recorded history in terms of science. Enkidu Ana is reported to be the second name after Imhotep, the architect of the first pyramid, who worked in a technical capacity. She not only was a scientist, but also was a poet, a modern woman of 4000 BC, who exercised multiple facets of her personality in pursuing a vibrant and creative life, and who made a lasting contribution down through the ages. It has been stated that one of her poems illustrated what she may have been doing. The true woman who possesses exceeding wisdom. She consults a tablet of lapis lazuli. She gives advice to all lands. She measures the heavens. She places measuring cords on the earth. There will always be giants among us who initially paved the way for those of us who come later. In Russia, I could look back to a pioneer, Sofia Kovalevskaya, who made enduring contributions in the field of partial differential equations in mathematics. Another great Russian scientist is Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman cosmonaut, and who was honored for her achievements by being selected as one of those who carried the Olympic flag in the opening ceremony of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi. Nonetheless, even though the accomplishment of women rank with those of their male counterparts, only 46 women have won Nobel Prizes, and if one eliminates those who have won for literature and who have been Nobel Peace Prize laureates, the actual number is barely 25. There have been women scientists in all fields, and many have worked during humanitarian emergencies or made contributions in the field of nursing, such as Florence Nightingale. Botanists, physicists, mathematicians, economists, very often relegated to footnotes in history. This forum is focusing on the role of women in sustainable development agenda. As a doctor and scientist, I am proud that the World Health Organization is led by a woman in science. The Women's and Children's Health at the World Health Organization is led by a woman in science, Her Excellency Dr. Flavia Bastyrio. The Minister of Health in the Russian Federation, Her Excellency Professor Veronika, is a renowned woman in science, and women in different fields of sciences are very well presented in this event. I believe it is important for women who do reach the top despite the odds to help build an overall environment in which all women can thrive. The great Japanese writer and feminist Reiko Hiratsuka once famously wrote, "In the beginning, woman was truly the sun, an authentic person." Today, more than ever, the global strategy for health, education, economy, development, and the humanitarian outreach needs precisely this kind of radiant sun to provide light and nourishment, to provide healing, to dry out the swamps of poverty and unrest. So, I urge everyone, all women and men of goodwill, to dare the difference and bet on women in science. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed. For when women in science shine like the sun, their radiance will be forever undimmed. I would hope through the Agenda 2030 that will be adopted by heads of state and government later this month at the United Nations headquarters, a new global partnership among people in every walk of life will elevate the contributions of women in science, past, present, and future. I thank you for your attention and wish you every success in this most important forum.